this vlog, if you didn't see the first two vlogs, we had part one was growing up as JD, Johnny Trawick, and part two is educational background of Johnny Trawick. And we had to do those to get into this because there's two specific topics of things that JD has done in his lifetime that are pretty iconic. So this part three vlog is titled The Funeral Biz. So, what I want to ask you is, how did that start? How early on in your life, at your age, I guess your grandparents were in the funeral business originally?
Yes.
Of Trawick Funeral Homes.
That's good.
Okay, and that was in Alabama.
Ozark.
Ozark, Alabama. Okay, and so how old were you when you first kind of understood it, knew it, or did they bring you through there as a baby? And while they were working, and you were aware of what was going on, and so where did that start?
As a baby, my grandfather tells the story that when I was a toddler in a stroller, and he'd take me in the mama room, and I would have a fit if he didn't pick my stroller up and put it on this counter where I could actually see what he was doing to the bodies.
Is that right?
Yes. So I don't know. I was months old. Yeah.
Amazing.
I wasn't a year. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
And he said when he put me up there, I'd calm right down. But as long as I'm down on the floor and I can't see what was going on, I'd have a fit. I would have a fit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now your grandma and your grandpa were both in the business?
Somewhat, my grandmother somewhat, but she mostly ran the cleaners, you see.
Okay,
but she had funeral director license as well as my father and grandfather.
And they both had the formal education for this at that time?
My grandfather did.
Okay. And so what does that formal education consist of? Is it similar to a medical doctor, or what do you have to do to go to school to do something like that?
It's similar. Mortuary science school. We went to John A. Gupton out of Nashville.
Is that right?
That's where he received his.
In Nashville, Tennessee.
Yes.
Wow. And so how many years do you have to do something
like that? A year.
1 year?
Yes.
And does that cover handling bodies or just handling a mortuary, or how does that go?
At that particular time, now we're talking about back in the 40s.
Right.
You see, so now it's different.
Okay, what is it like now?
You can get a socialist art degree in 2 years.
Is that right?
Yes.
And that lets you do what exactly?
Cremations, embalmings, funeral director, business,
Everything.
Funeral home, yeah.
Okay, now Trawick Funeral Home, now that also has its own graveyard.
Yes, we own a cemetery.
Okay. And then you have the limos for the transporting of the bodies and for the funerals.
We had all of that.
And then so now I've actually been to this. Is that the same location that has always been there?
Yes, but now I'm no longer in funeral business. I rented that business, that building there.
Right. Yes. I was back there when you were still in business back then.
Right, that's right.
And that's actually a pretty big location. It's like a whole corner thing, and it's really neat. So you saw it as a baby. You were around it, exposed to it, and because your grandfather was mainly in the business,
yes,
and your mom and your grandmother helped sometimes, and they're the people that raised you, the same grandparents.
That's correct.
Okay, and so how did it evolve from there? Did you work after school or hang out there, or did you actually work for them at one point?
Well, when I was a child, I would go on funerals. I'm 3 years old. He put me in a suit just like my grandfather. And I didn't realize then what I liked doing. I liked carrying the casket. You know how the pallbearers carry the casket out of the church?
Right.
I'd always grab the casket and like I was carrying it. And people thought I was so cute, because I really, in my mind, I really thought I was really helping them take the casket to the hearse. So I did that for a while. And when I got, I say probably in the 7th or 8th grade, that's when, you got jealousy in the community. And that's when before that, let's go back when I'm 3, 4 years old. I thought everybody had a funeral home. I thought everybody had a grandfather with a funeral.
Now, would you say that maybe your friends treated you a little different because your family was in the funeral business?
Eventually, I mean, at first, no, but when they realized what I was doing or what I was into it, they made it seem uncool. Like, I mean, ooh, your folks in film business, yucky, ooh. You know, and it wasn't glamorous or anything like that. And so they almost, really, they had me kind of ashamed of being in film business. I'm talking about, you know, kids that I grew up with and kids I was in school with. You know, your dad, your folks don't get to eat until somebody die. You know, all that. You know, it's hard.
Oh my
Some
gosh.
kids can be vicious.
Well, yeah, I know when I was like in 4th and 5th grade, I go stay with my Uncle Eric. And some of the kids I went to school with there, you know, somebody was affiliated with a funeral home. I don't remember how that went. It was like their dad or uncle or England or something. And it was like the big thing of like, you know, we should go there, you know, tonight. And it was like, how about everybody go? And I'm like, no. And it was creepy, spooky. You know, it was like, oh my gosh. You know, and so that's how it was for my age. You know, it was just different. But I think a lot of it's because of the unknown. I think people have a judgment of the unknown. And if they knew more about it, and that's why we're doing this vlog, I think if they knew more about it, understood, you know, more about it, the educational background it takes to do this, you know, that it's, you know, literally a business, and it's an important business, and it's going to always be there as a business. So it's kind of like, you know, bars and clubs and, you know, liquor stores and funeral homes, they're all going to exist for probably a very, very long time. But funeral home business, you know, there's a lot to it. You know, there's the scary sides, the sad sides, the funny sides, but it's a very serious business. I mean, you have to have a background like a medical doctor to handle this stuff. So it's very intriguing. Okay, so you were at the age of what, 7th grade, you said?
Yeah, I was in 7th grade when I kind of didn't really want to go around the funeral home too much, you know.
Because you thought it was your peers were giving you a hard time?
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, I didn't really want to do it. My grandfather, you know, it kind of hurt him because, you know, that's exactly, I mean, that's what he wanted me to do from birth. You know, his grandson's going to be the one to take over the business and so on and so forth. But I kind of started getting interested in basketball, sports, and things of that nature.
Now, do you regret making that choice at that time of kind of shying away from it because of peer pressure?
I don't regret it because it's a part of my growth. It's a part of who I am, what I went through.
Wow.
You know?
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't have any.
Okay, so where did we go from there? Did you get totally away from it, or how did it go?
I never got totally away from it. I'm not totally away from it now. Even though I'm retired from the business, it's still families and people will call Dean Scott that runs is now Scott Marcher, and they call Dean and they tell him, they say, hey, Johnny, we want to see Johnny, you know? And so I go make an appearance. Yeah, some people said that I'm only gonna let Johnny Trawick handle me when I die.
Oh my God.
And there's some people that surprised me. Big Bob McLean, he told his family when he died he wanted me to handle his body. And they told Dean Scott, you know, Dean, my dad wanted Johnny. And Dean called and said, Johnny, the family want to see you. And so I made it happen. So I don't think I'd ever be completely away from funeral. It's a part of funeral business because it's just a part of who I am.
Okay, so you basically still kind of, you know, worked with the funeral home after 7th grade, here and there.
Yes, you know, after school, funerals on Saturdays and stuff I go to. You know, my grandfather tell this story again. I was 3, 4 years old. I was sitting on his lap and we was in church, and my granddaddy, he would take his watch and he would shine the reflection onto the preacher's head, and we just have fun. But anyway, he says I was younger. I was younger than 3. I was maybe 2, and he didn't think I could even comprehend what the preacher was saying. And this was at a funeral. If I didn't have a house, I'd preach. If I didn't have a car, I'd preach. If I didn't have any clothes. When he said that, I said, Dada, well, that man preaching, he was naked for real. And my granddaddy knew right then, you just can't tell anything and think you're gonna get away with it. You know what I mean? But I thought, and so I'd go on these. So we have these funerals, and I know my role. I stand up there next to the casket just like my grandfather. Whatever he do, I do. You know, he raised his hand for the crowd to stand. I mean, not the crowd, but the congregation to stand. I'd raise my hand for the congregation to stand. Wow. And so this is when I was like, you know, really, really young. But so if we fast forward to 7th and 8th grade, I was still going on funerals. You know, some of my classmates' parents would die, and I'd go on funeral. You know? Yes. But
so
we're doing a blog here, you know.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, so you're so how many well, I guess you worked all your years with the thing. How did, let's see, before you even went to college for it, you worked all those years for the funeral home with your grandfather?
Yes. Let me tell you this. We used to have an ambulance service along with the funeral home. Funeral homes all across the United States would provide ambulance services before, you know. If somebody would die, we get in the ambulance, and my grandfather would go really fast. And I used to call that sheening. We used to say sheen. Sheen meant go fast. I don't know where it came up with the word, if I came up with the word. I'd say sheen da, and he'd blow it, and I'd run the lights and the siren. Wee, 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 and I had a siren going, and we'd go pick up somebody that's in a car wreck and so on and so forth. And so I really enjoyed doing the ambulance service part of it. Now, here we go, segregation again. If a person had a wreck in front of our funeral and they were white, we wasn't allowed to transport them.
No way.
And vice versa.
Now, what year was this?
Oh, we're talking in the 60s.
I see.
Yes. And so that was so foolish. You know, I imagine a lot of lives was lost because of segregation.
Right.
Yes. But I remember one time there was a white man called us. We was Ozark Funeral Home at the time. We was in Trawick Funeral Home. It was Ozark Funeral Home. And the white funeral home was Holman's Funeral Home. And some people didn't know, and they called Ozark Funeral Home. And this one particular white gentleman called, and he needed our help because his wife, she had fell and she hurt her knee. And I remember my grandfather saying, well, we're the colored funeral home. And he said, I don't care what color, I just need some help for my wife. And we went and we picked her up and we took her to the hospital.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. That is amazing.
Yeah.
So was that ambulance service, was that with the funeral home service?
Yes. Now, I forget what year they decided that wasn't in the best interest of the consumer or people, because God forbid, but this happened. Now watch, you probably get $40 for an ambulance run, but if Joe Snuffy dies, you're gonna get you $2,000 or $3,000. So if you got just Joe Snuffy and he's just about on his last leg, you might want to go kind of slow to the hospital. You understand?
Oh, God.
Yeah. So they had to take the ambulance service away from the funeral business because it was a conflict of interest there.
Oh my God.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was dangerous.
Amazing.
Yeah, that was kind of dangerous. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so So you eventually got rid of the ambulance service then?
Yes, the
It was
FTC,
outlawed or
Federal
something?
Trade Commission. Yeah, they made it illegal. Yeah, you can't be in funeral.
So you worked with your grandfather for how many years?
Mm.
Would you say?
Until he died in 1990. So
Wow.
you're talking about from, I was born in 59 to 90. So 60, that's 31 years. You might as well say.
Gee whiz. Okay, and how long was it? How old were you or what year were you licensed to be a funeral
I was
director or
licensed
whatever?
in 1981.
In 81.
But I knew how to embalm bodies, go on funerals, make arrangements, and all that, pick up bodies. I knew that before I finished high school in 1976.
Wow, amazing. Yeah. Okay, so when your grandfather passed away, now was your grandmother still alive at that time?
Yes.
Yeah, she was still alive, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, what happened to the funeral home upon his death? Did you just keep doing it, or
prior to his death, I became owner of the funeral home in 1981. So he died 9 years later.
And what was the reason for that? Did he make retired. That choice?
He retired so he could draw his pennies.
And so he decided to give that to you or sell it to you, or
no? He gave it. He made me the owner of it. Yeah, he transferred ownership to me.
Amazing. Wow. Now, did you see that coming? Really?
Yes. I mean, it was.
It's a family thing.
Everybody knew that Johnny Derrick is going to be the one to take over funeral business. Now,
okay, so your grandfather was in the funeral business. What did his father do and mother? Were they in the funeral business too?
His father was a school teacher. His mama was a homemaker.
Is that right?
Yes.
How interesting. Now, let me ask you this. Why do you think he got into the funeral business? What was the interest there?
I think he told me that the funeral home people that was in funeral business was very popular. Everybody knew them.
Okay.
And that attracted him. The popularity of being a funeral director, he was attracted to. Yes.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's kind of somewhere between a preacher and a best friend.
That's right.
It really is.
Yes.
Because people that are really in this business are very honest, and it really, it runs through their blood, this business, literally. I love to see people like that, like you. I've seen the way you operate. It's much different than the people down the street in Dothan that I knew personally, people that worked there and I affiliated with at the Elks Lodge and all that stuff, at a large name, predominantly white funeral home in this day and age. It was much more like car salesmen, and it just seemed kind of cold and fake, and I listen to them do their spiels, when somebody comes in and they're like, wow, I'm sorry for your loss, and then they're showing them, the gold casket and the, cardboard one, and then they want to sell them the amulets to put the ashes in and all this, and do all this stuff. These people are just bawling their eyes out, and it's just so pitiful. And it just seems so out for the money thing, where, I had gone to your funeral home a few times, during operation when you were still working, and it just was different. And I've heard you on the phone with people where they've called you and said, you promised to do my mommy, or my grandmother, and they depended on you, and it just seems so sincere. It was like best friends, but you probably grew up around these people too, and I had full respect for you. How many have you ever done white bodies at Trawick Funeral Home?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Now, was that before when your grandfather was there, or after, or when did that first one inter?
The first one, my grandfather was alive, and how this happened, Fort Rucker, all right, Army installations is right outside of Ozark, and some soldiers got killed, and they had started bidding. You had to bid, and the lowest bidder gets to do the business, see, and our prices were lower than anybody's, I imagine, at least anybody at the time that made that bid. And we wound up getting some pilots
I see. Now, how many funeral homes do you think were in the area at that time?
Ooh, 20.
And what year would that be? In the 90s, 80s? So, how many of those funeral homes, percentage? Because I know you got a lot of them specialize in the southern states and that of only doing black bodies or white bodies. So, how many do you think of those funeral homes were basically black or white, or were they just all pretty much versatile?
Up into in Ozark in southeast Alabama, up into 1999, it was pretty much segregated. Black people died, they go to black establishments. White people died, they go to white establishments. Now, in '99, there was a funeral home in Ozark. They started going after black business and in Dothan as well. They started going after. I was in school with my classmates, and they would discuss. We're not gonna discriminate. We're not gonna, money is money, business is business.
Is that right?
And so I saw it coming. I knew it was gonna be where blacks could go to any funeral home they wanted to, and vice versa. I knew that was coming.
So where do you learn to do, like, say you're working a body and whether they're black or white, where do you learn how to do the makeup and all this stuff for a black or for just a white person or an Asian person or Italian person? Where do you learn that? Is that in the funeral school, or is that something you learn upon time, or somebody teaches you this?
Both.
Really?
All the above. Yes, I learned how to embalm bodies, light skinned people, dark skinned people, and especially in the black community, we have all different shades, and so I knew how to do that before I went to school. But however, school reinforced what I had already learned.
So now, does the embalming have an effect of the look, the appearance of the body, and not just the makeup?
Sure.
Is that right?
Yes.
Now, embalming fluid is what? It's like formaldehyde. It's supposed to be plastic or something. It replaces the blood.
Formaldehyde, lanolin, humectants, it's oils. It's a lot of different ingredients.
Is that right?
Embalming fluid. Yes.
And how long would you say a body lasts upon
Now,
embalming? Because they talk about John Paul Jones with his hair still growing, his nails still growing out of Minneapolis. They look at him in a glass casket, and I just don't know.
Okay, now you just went two places. I want to try to address them. All right, one, you said how long does a body last, and the second thing, you telling me about the nails growing and everything. So let's do the first one. How long does a body last? Now, what I was taught in mortuary science school is that the Egyptians was able to embalm, and we know how they embalmed, and they've got bodies right now. You can see Pharaoh. He's been dead 3,000 something years. They've got the Valley of Kings, and you can see where these people. You can see their remains. Okay?
Now, were those actually embalmed?
Yes.
Bodies.
They were embalmed. Yes.
Gee, that's neat.
All right. Well, the way we embalm now is supposed to be superior to that. All right. With that being said, then some of these bodies that we've embalmed gonna be here a long, long time. Now, what have I seen personally? When I was in mortuary science school, we had to do what's called clinicals, where you got to embalm 10 bodies. And there was a funeral home there in Atlanta, it was Sellers Brothers Mortuary. That's where I was doing my clinicals. And they had a lady that had wandered into town and died. And they never knew who her relatives was or anything. And they embalmed her back in the 20s. She had been dead 80 years. And they would show her the students to show you how well an embalmed body could last and what it could look like if you do a good job. Yes.
Okay, so what is the reason you embalm a body?
It's to preserve the remains and disinfect human remains.
Okay, and so what does that do? I mean, is there a safety of that? Because, like a lot of people say, oh God, you just can't bury them like that. They have to be embalmed. So what does that do? Does that keep illness from coming up through the ground? Or if they, exhume a body to examine it many years later, and you want to touch it, that it's safer, or what exactly does that do?
Preserve and disinfect the body.
Just preserve and disinfect. That's interesting.
Yes.
Okay. And so now tell me why they say, my dad used to tell me the glass casket at Annapolis at the Naval Academy with John Paul Jones in it, and you could see his hair was still growing and his nails were growing. How would that happen when embalming fluid is poisonous?
What happens is the skin is deteriorating at a slow rate, but it's deteriorating. The skin around the nails will start to deteriorate, recede. So it makes make the nails appear to be growing.
Oh my
see?
gosh.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. All right, let's say you shave a man and then, he starts to deteriorate. The hair that's inside the epidermis of the skin will tend to protrude. And so you have to shave him again.
Okay, well then let me ask you this. Okay, so if somebody has illness, like people used to say in Arkansas, they'd say, oh, cancer is contagious. And I thought that was pretty ostentatious. I had a girlfriend of mine, her husband had cancer, and she said, well, it's contagious. I said, well, I don't know why it would be contagious. Cancer is a growth. I think it's a growth. But being contagious, I just don't know. So things like that, when you're embalming, whether it be cancer or AIDS or corona or any of these kind of things, how dangerous is that for you to handle a body like that? And then how safe is it to put it in the ground, much less, the other alternative of cremating? What are your thoughts?
It's dangerous, and you have to protect yourself for it. But I need to take a break right quick.
Okay, we're going to come back, and so stay tuned, and we'll go into part 4. We'll talk to you guys later.
Okay.